We know that Donald Trump's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, is in a big trouble, and it's actually very likely that he's going to be indicted. And it's one of the most direct paths to Donald Trump, sort of across all investigations at this point. And there's this popular narrative about Michael Cohen, which is he just has this love for Donald Trump. He would do anything for Donald Trump. He would never cross Trump or betray Trump in any way. It is total, unending loyalty to Donald Trump by Michael Cohen, which supposedly is why Michael Cohen was willing to mortgage his own house to pay Stormy Daniels $130,000 in hush money that was not to be paid back by Donald Trump. Now, of course, we now know that Cohen was paid back by Donald Trump. And we've also learned that the business partner of Michael Cohen has flipped and is now cooperating with investigators. I'm talking about Evgeny Friedman, who happens to, of course, be a Russian immigrant known as the Taxi King. He has reached a deal with the New York Attorney General to flip, to cooperate as a government witness. And this is not good for Trump, okay? We don't really care about Cohen per se or in and of himself, but it's clear that Cohen's involved in very shady business, and it's clear that he's going to end up in serious trouble here. The question is whether that will reach Trump. And Trump's lawyers have already been thinking that Michael Cohen might end up flipping because there is just so much that the government has on him. With his business partner, Evgeny Friedman, now potentially telling investigators everything as part of a plea agreement that he has reached, the pressure, or rather a cooperation agreement, the pressure is going to mount on Cohen, and that could be disastrous for Donald Trump. And clearly, if anybody knows the bad things that Trump has done, or that Trump has authorized, or that Trump has paid for or been involved in to some degree, it's Michael Cohen. And you know that they're afraid because they've been trying to pretend like Michael Cohen just had nothing to do with anything at all, and nothing to do with the taxi business that Friedman managed for them. Rudy Giuliani recently said, quote, he's just not involved in the taxis. He has as much involvement in it as I do, which is a weird thing for Rudy Giuliani to say because it's known that Michael Cohen is involved with that taxi business. And of course, the taxi business itself is just a small part of what Cohen and his friends have been involved with over the last many years. But what I want to go back to for a second is Evgeny Friedman being Russian. Why do Russians keep popping up everywhere in this investigation? Every nook and cranny they look in, there's no deal that Michael Cohen had with a Sri Lankan that we ever hear about, or some kind of Chilean business person or whatever. Every nook and cranny they look in, a Russian just pops up out of nowhere. And Evgeny Friedman is one of those guys who has now pleaded guilty in state court. And that makes 6 guilty pleas so far connected to this entire fiasco. We've got George Papadopoulos, Michael Flynn, that Dutch guy, Van der Zwaan, Rick Gates, Richard Pinedo, and now Evgeny Friedman. And yeah, you know, they're connected to Trump to varying degrees. I would say Michael Flynn and George Papadopoulos, very much connected to Donald Trump. The Van der Zwaan guy, less connected. Evgeny Friedman, arguably not connected to Donald Trump at all. But the list is growing, and I think that when it's a witch hunt and you keep finding witches, you can't really call it a witch hunt anymore, right? It's just an investigation into criminal activity. And I'm increasingly thinking about the resignation recently of the New York Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman, because these charges against Friedman were at the New York state level. We've talked about how the Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman of New York, was accused of sexually assaulting a couple of women. And we've known from the very beginning of this entire Trump-Russia thing that it's actually state charges that could bring down the criminal enterprise of Trump. And state charges, interestingly, cannot be pardoned by Donald Trump. Since Trump has been operating in New York City for a long time, the most likely candidate for state charges was always New York. Now, I want to be super clear. I'm not saying I don't believe the women who are accusing Eric Schneiderman of sexual assault. Everyone here knows that my instinct is, my default is, I believe the accusers on principle, and then I wait to find out more to see if anything surfaces that would question my belief in their accusations. That being said, it is very odd that the lawyer for the 2 women accusing Eric Schneiderman of sexual assault back in 2013 went to Michael Cohen, went to Donald Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, to talk about their allegations. And then those claims became public This year, in 2018, when Eric Schneiderman is getting closer and closer to finding evidence of criminality among Trump's cronies, and all of a sudden, Eric Schneiderman abruptly resigns. It's a big coincidence, and I often say, Pat, I just tend to not really believe in huge coincidences. I believe in odds, and at a certain point, things that happen seem to really go against the odds unless there's more of an explanation to them.
I'm a little skeptical, though, because if this was all just a plan to oust Schneiderman,
Yeah.
it's a little bit short-sighted because New York has a Democratic electorate. Whoever they elect to replace him would also be a liberal. But I guess it would just throw a wrench into the whole process because you can delay for at least a few months until the next one comes around.
I was thinking delay would be the name of the game, right? Like if there is some concerted effort here among Trump cronies to push Schneiderman out with the idea that that's the best way to delay non-pardonable state charges against these people, it's a matter of delaying, and who knows, maybe they'd be able to get out of office scot-free. In the meantime, we're going to try to find out more about this, and we will see what it means for Michael Cohen. But a very, very big deal. And again, because every single day at 5 o'clock, it's like scandal o'clock, a lot of these stories are going minimally reported to some degree. Discuss this with us on our subreddit with more than 6,000 other David Pakman Show viewers and listeners at davidpakman.com/REDDIT. Coming up next, how would you manipulate the 2018 midterms if that's what you wanted to do?